Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. Gamescom is behind us, and like I mentioned last week, Nintendo was completely absent, and so were most of the games coming to Switch. This week more than made up for it, as we got not one, but two Nintendo presentations, as well as a trailer for a movie that everybody listening to this podcast knows I'm going to be psyched for. Joining me to talk about all of that and more is my former Game Informer colleague, Marcus Stewart. Marcus, how are you doing?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Been very busy. My parents were in town this week. I have taken them to the State Fair, which, as many people know, the Minnesota State Fair is one of legend. It's right up there with Texas in terms of like the biggest and best state fairs in the United States of America. And it's always a good time. I feel extremely unhealthy right now. I've eaten so much fried food that just has no nutritional value whatsoever. We went to dinner last night right before they packed up and left very early this morning. And I was at dinner last night. It was a pretty nice dinner. And I ate my food and I was just like, I feel extremely like not healthy at this moment. Like I was like, it was like one of those moments where it's like, I think my body would be overjoyed if I just ate one single broccoli crown because I felt like I've not had vegetables in like 3 days.
I actually had a similar feeling being in Gamescom because you realize being in Germany that it's this must be the origin of the phrase meat and potatoes because that is the crutch of their cuisine, and you really gotta go on a hunt for some vegetables to sneak in there.
Did you have any currywurst?
I saw it everywhere. I don't. Is it weird to say I don't know? Because
Marcus,
I think I was like, did I eat something that was that? I had a lot of doner. Okay, I was trying to avoid saying doners. I feel like we think of like the cannibal family.
I always think of the reindeer.
Sure, I guess. Well, that's the difference between our mindsets, I guess. I had a lot of that. That was very good.
Yeah, I mean, Germany has a lot of great food. We're going to talk about your experience at Gamescom at the tail end of the show. But while we're on the topic of eating very unhealthy food, the currywurst. So if people follow me on Instagram, they know that I am a massive fan of curry. Absolutely adore the stuff. And I saw currywurst and I was like, okay, so it's basically just like, bratwurst, fries, and then they dump this like curry sauce over top of it. And it's unbelievable. There was one right outside of my hotel that I stayed at when I went to Gamescom in 2019. And I would go to that stand every day on the way back on the way back from the expo. I would stop there and get currywurst. And I remember there came a point in that trip where I was like, I simply cannot have more currywurst because just the thought of it was making me feel sick. And now, like you're talking about it, I've not had breakfast yet by the time we're recording this. So I am starving and I want currywurst so bad in this moment.
Hey, I haven't eaten yet either, so we're brothers and starve.
Brothers and starves, yes.
Together. I just looked up currywurst. I did not have this. I was like just trying to see like, did I? And I forgot, but no, I definitely saw it everywhere. But yeah, I missed out.
Yeah, well, next time you'll have to get that. But we're going to talk about Gamescom at the tail end of the show. So here's the way the show is going to be laid out here, because I know everybody's going to want the conversations to be focused on the Nintendo presentations, and that is exactly what the bulk of this show is going to be. But first up, we are going to be talking about news that happened outside of those two main streams. So we're going to lead off with this, Marcus. Big news for me, at least. I'm sure for you as well. Sega and Paramount released a 3-minute trailer giving us our first real look at the upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie. And I've got to say, I am extremely impressed. The trailer shows Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails. They look like they're almost like an Avengers style team. Like they're like being deployed to fight Shadow, who is like he's escaped his little like test vial, I guess, and he's wreaking havoc on Tokyo. And they show up and like they exchange their little quips, and Sonic's trying to like to negotiate with Shadow, and Knuckles is like, I want to fight him, because that's how Knuckles is. And Shadow absolutely wrecks them.
Of course.
So the team seeks out Dr. Robotnik, with Jim Carrey reprising his role. I saw a comment on the YouTube channel that was like, Jim Carrey retired from acting, and he said the only way he would return is if there was a script made of gold. And so it's like, I guess that means the script is made of gold, because he is back not only just playing Dr. Robotnik, but playing Gerald Robotnik as well. And then the trailer also gives us confirmation that Shadow is, in fact, voiced by Keanu Reeves. That was a report that was several months ago. This movie looks a lot darker than the other two Sonic movies, and it also looks like I feel like I said this last time, and they did learn their lesson a little bit with Sonic 2, and then they went right back to it with the Knuckles show. But it looks like they might have fewer human-only scenes, but we'll see. But the movie's coming out December 20th. What did you think of this trailer?
Yeah, it looks cool. Like I like those first two films well enough, and like it was, it's cool to see Shadow, even though like I've traditionally never been like the biggest fan of Shadow as a character, and I know that's like blasphemy. But like, I mean, Keanu Reeves voicing him is like, okay, this is by default, this is the coolest Shadow's ever been. I think your point about it seeming darker or more like, are they just like superheroes now? Because I feel like the first two movies, they're like, they're saving the world, but it's just because they're kind of like, well, they're the only ones that can do it and there's around. But now it's like, has the world become aware of them to where they're like getting deployed by like the government? And like, is this the like, have they reached the like Fast 4 or Fast 5 phase where they're just like, oh no, this is just their job now, is that they just go save the world?
The trailer does start with the mention of "you found your family," so it might be a Fast and Furious type situation.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you want to go, I mean, not the series was always like over the top anyway, but if you want to go that direction and just have like, I mean, there's like scenes where like Shadow's on his motorcycle doing like weird stunts and like zipping around. So yeah, I do like the tone that they're going for. And I wonder, do you think I don't think it was in the trailer, but is there any point that Shadow pulls out guns?
I've seen speculation that will be like the biggest pop, as if he's like, I need a weapon, like Master Chief style, or I need a gun.
Like him and Sonic have their climactic showdown, and then he just reaches behind him and pulls his guns out, and he's like, oh, this is getting serious now.
I do want to shout out Kleinfeld, former All Things Nintendo guest and friend of the show. He wrote an article over on thedirect.com, the one of the sites that he writes for, and he talked about how he speculates that this is going to lead to Metal Sonic. Because they seek out the help of Dr. Robotnik to take down Shadow, and I bet Dr. Robotnik, he is going to construct something and he grabbed the quill from Sonic. So it makes sense that maybe Dr. Robotnik's plan would be just another like super fast hedgehog, or a thing that harnesses the power of Sonic to take down Shadow as well. So
in this movie, we're going to see not like setting up for a fourth movie, you're saying?
It could be. I mean, I think Klein speculated it would just be like a cameo, like almost like you could see him being made and then that was it. Like it wouldn't be like, I'm speculating that it's going to be one of those situations where Shadow is like too powerful. So they build a Metal Sonic to fight him. And then it's going to turn out that like I think Metal Sonic will defeat Shadow, and then it'll start turning on the team, and then they'll all have to band together to fight Metal Sonic.
Okay, including Shadow?
Yes. Because how else is Shadow going to become a good guy, which he eventually does in the games, unless they're just going to make him a villain forever, which I don't see that happening.
No. I would say one thing I do respect about these movies is that, there's a million Sonic characters, but they've all have been very restrained in terms of like trying to cram too many people or things into these movies. Like, the first one was just Sonic and Robotnik basically. And then the second was here's Tails and Knuckles. And then this one's like, here's Shadow. And it's like, I feel like it would be very easy to be like, here's Metal Sonic and here's Amy and here's Big the Cat because I don't know, we got your money, you want it. Like I feel like it's very easy to get lost in the sauce of fan service. So and so many other video game movies fall victim to that. So I do like that. I was like, okay, I only saw Shadow. Doesn't mean no one else will show up, but it's like, okay, Shadow is the thing, and this movie probably only really needs to just be Shadow. I'm like I could see the Metal Sonic cameo, but I think that's maybe as far as it gets. Because I mean, outside of Shags, the other new character is Gerald Robotnik, depending on how big of a role he plays in the movie. So yeah, I do like that direction. Like they seem to have struck a good balance with not overloading fans with stuff, or just newcomers trying to figure out like, well, who are all these hedgehogs running around?
What do you think is more likely? Do we get Metal Sonic in Sonic 3 or do we get Amy in Sonic 3?
I thought about Amy too, because I almost feel like it seems like she should have appeared at this point just to give, just to add one more member to the good guy team. This movie comes out this year, right? December?
December 20th.
There's still time to show her. I was like, I feel like she was in it. They would have teased her in this even a little bit, So I'm gonna say no Amy in this. I think maybe a little bit more likely we see some hints of Metal Sonic and they still just hold off on Amy.
Now, what do you think is more likely? I mean, this is looking way ahead. If they do a Sonic 4, do you think Metal Sonic is the main antagonist there, or do you think they go something like Chaos from Sonic Adventure 1?
I think they go Chaos. As cool as Metal Sonic is, I feel like I don't know if it's enough to carry a movie if we're going more the series progression of like now we're in the Adventure 2 or the Adventure era, that I think they keep going down that line and say, okay, Chaos is the next big thing, especially just like if we're going to keep raising the stakes. Like Chaos would be a bigger threat than Metal Sonic, right?
Yeah, that's why it might make sense to ramp from Shadow to Metal Sonic and then Chaos.
Right.
So you're saying, but would Metal Sonic be in this movie, or would he be in the next movie? Like, or would he be introduced in this movie and then in the next movie he is the main bad guy? Or do you think that my theory is the way that they go, where Metal Sonic takes out Shadow and then starts beating up Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails, and they all have to band together and do that? See,
I think if they're going to be as sort of like restrained as they have been, maybe they repeat how they introduced Shadow or Metal Sonic's a post-credit stinger, and then next movie he's like the guy, but then also Chaos is the guy. But like it's like Chaos is the guy, but Metal Sonic is like there. He's like, okay, he's here too.
Now I wonder, because think about how Sonic Adventure 2 played out. Right, there was Shadow was like one of the early main antagonists, and then near the end, Sonic and Shadow have to band together and do the Super Sonic, Super Shadow thing to take down a larger threat. I don't know if Metal Sonic would require, unless he turns into like Metal Overlord from Sonic Heroes. I don't know if Metal Sonic would necessitate them turning into Super Sonic and Super Shadow to fight him. So I almost wonder if they do like a bigger threat at the end of this that requires them to both do that, and then blasting Crush 40's Live and Learn as they take down whatever this enemy is. Could they do Chaos this time?
Like in this movie?
Yeah. Could that be like the big bad reveal that Dr. Robotnik takes on?
No, I feel like it might be too much. I think you would start veering into like Spider-Man 3 territory a bit.
I mean, don't bring Metal Sonic in at all if they do Chaos, is what I'm saying.
No.
Maybe the post-credit stinger is Metal Sonic.
Unless those trailers are like big red herrings, we're like, no, Shadow isn't the threat here. It's this other thing that we're not going to show you. I don't know. I feel like, I mean, you would know better than me. Do you think Chaos is too big? Like he should have just a movie dedicated to that, instead of sort of like being the Venom of Spider-Man 3. Like, okay, he's here at the end. And you're like, oh, I wish we just focused on him for a whole movie. That would make more sense.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I agree with you there. I love Chaos. Like, I think Chaos is my favorite, like, non-Robotnik, non-Shadow enemy that Sonic has faced, and like in terms of like the big bads. Oh man, I think you're right. I think it would be maybe trying to cram too much into that. I think Chaos does deserve his own thing, even if it's like, maybe start planting the seeds of it in this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Learn a thing or two from Marvel and just start like being like just a little like reference here or there.
I mean, speaking of Marvel, I think maybe there's a chance that this movie and then also the fourth movie, if it happens, they start leaning into like time travel / multiversal stuff, because I mean that's just where all popular media is now.
I hope not. I hope not.
I mean, they have a character that can do that with Silver the Hedgehog, and it's like, okay, now that we're at Shadow, he's like the next big hedgehog that you introduce after Shadow, right? Is Silver?
I hope not. I think Silver we can skip or save for like Sonic 6.
Like, is there a chance he shows up in the post credits of this, where like they save the day, and then you see him come from the future, and he's like, "Oh man, I gotta fix the future by changing the past." Like that's like the post credit scene is him trying to find Sonic in them.
I hope not. I sincerely hope they don't go to Silver already. I hope it's something. I mean, we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but I hope it is something like revealing like a character I care a lot more about, like you said, like Chaos or Metal Sonic. I hope that is the conclusion. I hope it's like, because I'm almost certain that like there's going to be everybody's going to be fighting Shadow, right? And Shadow's in the trailer is beating the crap out of everybody. They enlist the help of Dr. Robotnik. He's not going to stay a good guy for that entire movie. He's going to backstab them, and then they're all going to have to band together to fight whatever Dr. Robotnik is throwing at them, whether that be Metal Sonic or Chaos or whatever. And then I think that they're going to defeat him, and he's going to be like, all right, well, my next plan is going to be getting Chaos or Metal Sonic or something. I don't know.
Does Chaos, again, not being totally up on like the lore, but is Chaos a man-made creation, or is it just like its own thing? That
no, and they're actually, so they're leaning into like the Chaos lore with Sonic Frontiers. They showed kind of like his species as like one of the creatures that's like, they showed like a bunch of creatures in his species and like flashback scenes in Sonic Frontiers. But in Sonic Adventure, Dr. Eggman calls him the God of Destruction. Okay, so he's like
fierce.
So yeah, he basically absorbs Chaos Emerald's powers, and every time he absorbs a Chaos Emerald, he like levels up basically. And then when he absorbs all of them, he becomes perfect Chaos, which is seemingly indestructible. But at the end of Sonic Adventure, they gather all the Chaos Emeralds that have been drained of their color and their power, and they realize that Chaos only absorbed like the negative energy. Sonic could absorb the positive energy and turn into Super Sonic to fight him.
So he is of Sonic's home world.
I think he was of Knuckles' home world. It's weird because like the world situation is kind of blurry when it comes to how the movie universe compares to the game universe.
Sure.
So I think the humans and Sonic in like the Sonic Adventure timeline and all that stuff, like they all coexist on the same planet. Mm. But then like in the movies, Sonic is an alien. So like he comes from a different world. But I think it would make the most sense to have Chaos be like a mythological creature from Knuckles' planet in the movies, because the Chaos has a history with like the echidnas, and I think in Sonic Adventure he actually was responsible for wiping out that species aside from Knuckles.
Okay, all of that is to ask, like, if they go the Chaos route, I would love it if the fourth movie, or like it gives them an excuse for the fourth movie to set it entirely in Sonic's world and get away from Earth for once. Like just, because we only ever see flashes of it, and it's like, can we just have the movie that is just green, like actual Green Hill Zone and like all the levels, like that's like, if that's what it takes to get there, or if Silver has to show up and be like, no, you got to go back to your world, man, because things are not good, and go to the future too. I know we're talking about the third movie, but like I'm hoping this movie sort of plants some seeds of like, okay, we got to go back to Mobius and see what's going on over there.
Mobius, that's a name I've not heard in many years.
Yes, we only hear it in reference to Owen Wilson's character in Loki,
or we hear Morbius in reference to the cinematic masterpiece.
Yes, it's Mobin time.
It's Mobin time.
That's what Sonic's gonna say. Oh my god, that would be a joke in this movie where they have to go back to Mobius and they're like getting ready to go, and Sonic says it's Mopin time to make fun of Morbius.
Is Mobius a thing in like actual an actual thing in the games? Like I'm trying to remember. I think that's just in the TV show, in the comics.
Oh, like in terms of like the name of his world? Yeah, I think so. 'Cause I don't think I've ever heard the games or like any of the shows that I watch actually reference like or say the name of his world.
Okay, so Mobius is the name of a fictional planet that appears in several spin-off media for the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. The term originated from the early Sonic canon by Sega of America and was subsequently adopted by Western media. After Sonic Adventure, the term was discarded worldwide and has been very rarely used afterwards. Sonic's homeworld was named Earth in Sonic Adventure 2 and has remained its canon name ever since.
Sure. Like, I mean, which I always thought too, is like, oh, it's just Earth, but with talking animals. Because why not? Because there's humans there, you know, like Robotnik's a human.
He is. But yeah, and then in the movie, it's like a different planet, but I don't think they ever gave it a different name.
I thought they called him Mobius in the movie, or maybe not. Maybe I'm just confused.
I don't
confused man.
But I am very much looking forward. This is like the most hyped I've been for a new Sonic movie since
the last one,
ever.
No, yeah, I was like, since the last one.
I was thinking, like, was I hyped for the first one? And I honestly wasn't very hyped for the first one because it looked so bad. Like, it made such a bad first impression.
Sure, yeah.
And then I saw it and I was like, oh, that was actually a lot better than I expected. And then the second one I liked more than the first one, but I was like also kind of still hesitant. This one, I feel like they have proven a lot already. Knuckles, the series, I thought had some problems, but you know, there were some good scenes in that as well. There was a lot of like heartfelt moments in Knuckles, the series, and I'm excited for this one. Like, this one looks like it has a really good tone, like a darker tone. I loved the first line that we get from Shadow. Like, Keanu does such a great job delivering it. He's like, "You're a colorful bunch," and it's just like, that's exactly what Shadow would have said in that moment. Like, seeing like this red, blue, and yellow like anthropomorphic characters that look, one of them looks kind of like him. Like, he would say something just like that.
Yeah. Also, that scene earlier on where the three of them are racing, I was wondering, like, is there going to be any like Sonic Heroes references?
I mean, did they say? I mean, I thought they were doing like a Sonic Heroes reference at the end of Sonic 2. Where they were all kind of like running together and like they kind of had like their streaks running behind them.
Yeah, I guess I just want to hear the Sonic Heroes song, like a cover of it.
I think we're going to get Live and Learn in this movie. Like, it has to be.
I feel like Live and Learn is they're saving that as like, you remember how long it took to hear Avengers Assemble in the MCU? I feel like that's their Avengers Assemble. Like, when you hear Live and Learn, that's when things really are popping off, but we're saving it.
God, like,
that's for when Silver the Hedgehog shows up, guys.
I hope not. Especially since that song is so closely associated with Sonic Adventure 2 and Shadow. Like, it would make so much sense to have. I don't think there's any way we hear Sonic Heroes and Live and Learn. I think it's got to be Live and Learn. And then
the fans can't handle both.
Yeah, the fans' minds would just break if they played both of them. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this movie. Comes out December 20th. As the kids say, we will be seated.
Is that what they say? I've never heard that.
I think they say that. Yeah, I'm sure. Let's just run with it. I'm 37. A reminder that you can support the All Things Nintendo podcast through a variety of ways. The biggest and best way is the Patreon page, where you can come in at the $5 or $10 level and unlock perks like early and ad-free episodes, as well as an entirely separate weekly podcast called All Things Gamers, which covers the entire games industry. You also get access to the All Things Nintendo community Discord, where we have some of the best people over there chatting about all of our favorite hobby. Another way you can help the cause is by checking out the All Things Nintendo merchandise store on tpublic.com, where we now have All Things Gamers merchandise. Look for the link in the description of the show. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, where I put up not only the full video versions of this very podcast, but also pertinent clips and shorts from this show. So if you listen to the All Things Gamers podcast as part of that $10 Patreon tier, you heard me and Margaret Andrews discuss a bit about how developer Concerned Ape, Eric Barone, has taken longer than usual to get the big 1.6 patch out to console players of Stardew Valley. That patch adds multiplayer changes and improvements, a bunch of new content, and various quality of life improvements. And I found this story over on NintendoLife.com. Barone put out a statement on Twitter acknowledging that it's taking a long time to bring this patch to consoles because it hit PCs in March. And he said, quote, "Console and mobile ports are still in progress. I acknowledge that it is taking a very long time. There are reasons for this, but the bottom line is that they are not out yet. We are still working on them, and they have been our primary focus since 1.6 came out for PC. It would be a huge relief to me if they were available, if they were ready today, but they aren't. So we can all we can do is continue working on them until they are ready." And I've also made no secret that I'm very excited to learn more about the Haunted Chocolatier, which is Concerned Ape's next game. Basically, it looks like Willy Wonka in Stardew Valley.
Yeah, it's like Willy Wonka if it was a haunted house.
Yes. But unfortunately, it sounds like work on that has completely stalled due to how much work getting 1.6 to consoles has been. He said, quote, "I have not touched Haunted Chocolatier in a long time because I'm committed to finalizing Stardew 1.6 first. To those who are frustrated or even angry about the timeline, I understand and accept full responsibility. To those who are patient and understanding, thank you. You make life better and reduce stress, and I appreciate it. Back to work." So yeah, I mean, that isn't the most promising update on either Stardew Valley 1.6 for consoles or Haunted Chocolatier. Are you looking forward to either of these games, or either the 1.6 update or Haunted Chocolatier?
So I've never played Stardew Valley, and it's one of my biggest. It's one of the games highest on my pile of shame of things. And granted, I've never been like a huge farm guy. Like I didn't grow up playing Harvest Moon or anything like that. It's a genre I've only really dabbled in recent years, and I've liked some of the stuff I've played. But like Stardew, I've been wanting to play for a long time, and every time it moved to a platform that was more appealing, I always say like that's the one. Because originally it launched on PC, and I was like, oh, I'll play it eventually, and then came to PlayStation. I was like, okay, that's the one, and then it came to Switch. I was like, no, that's the one, and that will still be the one. It's on my Switch wish list. So I just have to get to it. Chocolatier, I'm very interested in things. I just think that's such a fun idea and like a weird concept. So it is a bummer to hear that is sort of just on standby right now, but it makes sense. I mean, he's still working basically by himself, right?
He has a small team from what I understand. Okay. But yeah, he's like still the guy.
Okay. So yeah, that stinks, but I get it. It's one of those things like stuff happens. At least he's being like communicative about it, which is always nice. At least I don't have to like wonder where things are with that game. So it's like now you kind of can reset your expectations a bit of like, okay, I guess I won't be hearing about Haunted Chocolatier for some time, so I guess I'll forget about it for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those games. It's up there with Hollow Knight, Silksong, where it's like we have had this on our radar for so long, and it's just like we go these long periods of not hearing anything, and we're like, the fan base is just like salivating at new information about these games, and we just keep getting disappointed. But at least he's acknowledging that Haunted Chocolatier is still kind of a ways off, and there's reasons for that if you look at Stardew Valley 1.6. And I get it, because like Stardew Valley has such a large install base that it's like you want this to be the game that like the best game that it can be. Like you think about like the game that he will be remembered by, there's no guarantee Haunted Chocolatier is going to take off the way Stardew Valley has. So there is a very good chance that he puts out Haunted Chocolatier and people are like, oh, we don't like this as much. And then it's like, oh, well, I had all these ideas that I could have done for Stardew Valley. And then it would look weird if he went back and started doing like more patches for Stardew Valley. And it's like, okay, well, if he did like 1.7 for Stardew Valley after Haunted Chocolatier comes out, our fans going to be like, okay, he's acknowledging this is a failure and he needs to get back to this. So maybe he's trying to like do all he wants to do with Stardew Valley, put a bow on it, and then eventually just be like, okay, now we are 100% focused on Haunted Chocolatier, getting that out the door. And then once that comes out, all of our focus is going to be on supporting that game.
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I hope that the update lives up to, I guess it's already out, so we already know it's out. It's just waiting for it to come to consoles, which, you hear sometimes about console ports being weird for whatever reason. It's not as easy as like, oh, just bring it over there. So
copy
I get
paste.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that all it takes? You just drop it in the Dropbox for PlayStation and Xbox and Switch.
Phil Spencer's checking his email. Oh, there's the update. Let me just like let me hit the update button.
He's the one personally in charge of flipping that switch.
He's got a big button, a big red button that says update, and he hits it, and and that's how it works.
Yeah,
game development is easy. Why does everybody make it seem so hard?
Yeah, gosh.
Wasn't it Shigeru Miyamoto that said like every game that gets made is a little miracle or something like that?
Prophetic words.
Yeah. Turns out that I don't even know if that's actually a Miyamoto quote, but somebody said that, and it's like, oh, turns out they know what they're talking about. I think we attribute
all profound game development quotes to Miyamoto. Like, I don't even know. I don't even think he's aware that people thinks he says this. He's like, did I say that? Maybe I forgot that I said this.
Man, if I ever interview Miyamoto again, I do want to ask him if that quote about a good or a late or delayed video game is eventually good, but a rushed video game, a bad video game that is rushed out is bad forever or whatever like that. I want to know if that actually was his quote, or if he's like, I've never heard those words in that order before in my entire life.
If we still did our rapid fire interviews and did one with him, I would like to do a bit where I just read him other like profound game developer quotes and ask if he said that. Just or get his reaction for it. He's like, do you think this is better than that thing you said?
He's like, I never said that. I told you.
So what was on your mind when you said this?
Marcus, we finally, the final news update that we have before we jump over to the Nintendo presentations that we got, Super Evil Megacorp. That is a development studio with a fantastic name. The developer of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate. Mm-hmm. They revealed a roadmap for post-launch support now that it is out on Switch. It's been on Apple Arcade for a while now, but it came out to Switch earlier this summer. It just says 2024 and 2025, so we don't know what the timeline is aside from in the next year or so. But here's what we can expect, presumably in order. 1, PC and Steam Deck releases with Steam achievements. 2, online matchmaking challenges and leaderboards. 3, new DLC with additional playable characters, new levels, new enemies, new bosses, new original storyline, and, quote, many more surprises. And then finally, further console expansions. So I'm assuming that means PS5, Xbox Series X, and whatever else comes out between now and the end of 2025. Switch 2. Hopefully they don't have to do that because everything on Switch 1 will work on Switch 2. I'm going to be very upset if that's not the case. But when the game came out earlier this summer, I gave it a 7.75, which I only know because we put it on the Game Informer Instagram account that still exists. Did you ever check out this game?
No, I remember you sent me a code. I still haven't installed, and I see it all the time on my front page, but I've just been busy finishing up some other Switch stuff. But I do want to, just because I'm a TMNT fan, and just hearing that it's kind of Hades is interesting to me.
Very Hades, I would say. I mean, if there was one game that you were like, oh, it's like this game, it would be Hades.
There you go. Okay. I mean, those on paper, those two things are like, yeah, I want to play that.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't quite reach those heights, and there are a few minor performance problems on the Switch, which is why I think the Steam Deck the Steam version is gonna absolutely rule if you like playing games on PC. So, I mean, I would recommend you check this game out. I don't know how much these updates are going to add to this, the overall experience, but I mean, right now it's a perfectly good game. Sure. It's just it could be better if they remove some of the repetition, which I know is a trademark of the experience, but it also, by like the 25th time that I was fighting like Leatherhead, I was like, come on. Like, even though they add like variants and everything, like, oh, this time he calls these minions out, and this other time, like, this character is fire type or uses like shadow powers or whatever. Like, it's still like, okay, this is the same boss in the same arena, even though they have different powers. So once they get past that, or if they can figure out a way to alleviate that, I think that game is going to be actually really good.
Here's who they add. You mentioned they're adding extra characters. I assume right now it's just the 4 turtles and that's it. So it's like, okay, they can. I mean, that the immediate roster is pretty like obvious. They're like, hey, they could add Splinter or April or Casey Jones, and then I feel like Shredder's Revenge they got to live up to that a bit of like, oh, look at all the cool characters they added to this game, like Usagi and Karai. So I wonder how far the rabbit hole they'll go down for that. No pun intended for Usagi.
Yeah, Usagi.
But I mean, if they could one-up them and add someone that they haven't added, which is like, oh, what if they added Venus de Milo, everyone's favorite turtle?
Metalhead.
Yeah.
I mean, as you go through the campaign, you do encounter these other heroes that like you have like rescued from these bosses, and then they're just like in the turtle lair.
Oh, so like big main character kind of heroes?
Yeah, like Casey Jones. Eventually you encounter him after a set number of runs, and he goes and joins the turtle lair, and like April's there, and Metalhead, and all these other characters.
So they've already made those assets.
Yeah, exactly. They just need to make so they're playable, which, like I said, so easy. Game development.
Switch. It just from NPC to playable character. That's all it takes.
But Marcus, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about the 2 Nintendo presentations that were released this week. We will be right back. We are back, and last week we got a Nintendo Direct talking all about the upcoming Nintendo Museum. If you want to hear about that, you can go back to last week's episode and listen to our discussion on that. This week, it was not 1 but 2 Nintendo Direct presentations. First one was an indie showcase, and then we got a Nintendo Direct partner showcase. And I don't think we're going to cover everything in the streams because this would be an extremely long episode, and I did want to run down the announcements and the games mentioned, though. And Marcus, if anything catches your eye, or you want to discuss anything in greater depth, just interrupt me and jump right in.
Should I just yell my name like we're playing Back in the Box trivia?
Just raise your hand. I will point directly at you and call on you, and like a teacher, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Or an auctioneer, like when they have the little signs and they're like, "I'd like to bid."
I am going to be rattling these off as fast as an auctioneer, so this segment could last a total of 5 minutes. But let's start with this one, because I know it's one that we probably both want to talk about a little bit. And that is Balatro, Friends of Jimbo. This was how the Indie World Showcase opened up, and it is a free update coming to our favorite indie game of the year, I would imagine. Is it your favorite indie game of the year so far?
Oh, it's my game of the year.
It is so good. I don't know where it ranks in my game. It might be number 2 or 3 for me, behind Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But players are going to be able to use cards that are collaborations with other games. So Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, 10 out of 10 game. Vampire Survivors, another game that might be a 10 out of 10 for me. You've heard me talk about it a lot on this show. Dave the Diver, fantastic game. And Among Us, a game that I have no experience with outside of playing it one time and being like, I don't like this type of game. But a lot of people love that game. So those are the 4 franchises or games, I guess, in the case of Witcher 3, that Balatro is crossing over with. And it's called Friends of Jimbo. And guess what? It's a free update for Balatro that is out now. Have you checked this out at all, or have you had any excitement to check it out?
Not yet, but I am excited to check it out because, again, I love Balatro. I still play it pretty regularly because I'm still trying to unlock all those decks. And I also split my time between the Switch and Steam version, and I got an ungodly amount of hours on both. So,
why split it? I may be so bold.
It just sort of depends on where I am physically interested in being at that moment, because I started on PC because that's where I reviewed it for Game Informer. Okay. And it was funny because it was during that review period that I stopped playing, went to bed, or started getting ready for bed because it got really late, as time melts when you're playing that game. And then between the time of walking from my computer to washing up to getting into my bed, I got the itch for one more run. I was like, oh, but I would have to get back up and turn my computer back on. So then I bought it on Switch right there. It's like, oh, I can solve this problem immediately. So, it's, you want a Balatro that you can, I would prefer to set up my computer just because it's easier to click the mouse and drag and then have a video or podcast playing in the background. Mm-hmm. But then there's times where if I'm traveling or I just want to lay down on my bed and just play some Balatro. So I feel like you should have it a portable version and a home version of Balatro. I think that's the combo.
Well, the Switch version is both, and so is the Steam version. Yeah. If you have a Steam Deck,
I guess that's true. I don't have a Steam Deck, so yeah.
I do, but I always prefer to travel with the Switch just because it's so much slimmer.
Yeah, the Steam Deck is the second coming of the Game Gear.
It's huge. And also the battery life is about as good as the Game Gear.
It was weird that they copied those features.
That's a very nice
huge
screen,
and only you got a little bit of power out of it.
But it is funny that the 2 games that I have just hammered into the listeners of this show that they are my plain games are now crossing over. Vampire Survivors and Balatro.
Yeah, 2 very similar games too. I think even in my review I called out because they have just the same satisfying power escalation in both of those games. It was fun to see. Oh, okay, we're just gonna bring them together.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it'll make time go faster even on a plane, even double time at this point, because like you said, time just melts away when you're playing Balatro. Same thing for Vampire Survivors. So That's the modifier they really need to add, is making your time go faster on a plane.
They're working on it.
They're working on that. That's
they got to get in touch with the airlines and work it out.
They're doing the exponential tactic of like, well, what if we cross over with other games that just make your time vanish faster than you think they will?
I was surprised, and maybe this is coming because when they was announcing the franchise, I was expecting like Nintendo franchises, because I thought at first it's like, oh, is this like just a Switch only update?
Oh my god, could you imagine like a Zelda deck or like a Mario deck?
Yeah, I want a Zelda Joker.
That would be so cool. I don't know what the powers would be or anything, but like,
if you get kooky the way that Smash Brothers does with its power-ups of like just take random elements from franchises and do weird stuff with them, like Zelda alone has like, oh, what would a Majora's Mask Joker do?
Oh, Marcus, that is everything I want in this world. I mean, I also want that in Vampire Survivors, right? I want like a Final Fantasy update to that, and I want a Zelda update, like all like these. Oh man. There's so many cool things I want in Vampire Survivors and now Balatro, because I didn't know that collaborations were even an option for Balatro, and now here we are.
I bet the next one's Tomb Raider, because it feels like everything gets a Tomb Raider collaboration now. Like for whatever reason, she's become like Shovel Knight, where she's just showing up everywhere. So it's like, I bet because it seemed like at the end of the trailer they said for now, in terms of like, yeah, these are the crossovers for now. So it's like, I bet Wave 2 is somewhere there's a Lara Croft deck in there.
You know what game also has a lot of collaborations and has also crossed over with Tomb Raider?
Power Wash Simulator?
Power Wash Simulator, baby!
Woo!
And that was also in the Indie World presentation, and that was they've done a Final Fantasy collaboration, or no, they haven't done. Have they done a? Yeah, they have. They did a. I didn't know if that was
7.
Like, if that was one that like I just dreamed up and really wanted to happen, but no. They did a Final Fantasy 7 collaboration earlier. Now they do Shrek ? I did not expect that to come.
Is it weird that at first, I think I must have missed the little lower third that said Power Wash Simulator, because at first I thought it was a Shrek game that was like a basically ripoff of Power Wash Simulator, until the end of the segment was like, oh, never mind. It's the thing that makes more sense is what it is. I was like, are they just doing just their own Power Wash Simulator, but Shrek? That's weird.
So it is the Shrek Special Pack. It's paid DLC, and you can dress up as a new character model, a night-themed character model. And the maps that we know, there's 5 of them, but the 2 that they have announced are Shrek's Swamp, which is probably going to be a very good location, and then the Dragon's Lair. And that is coming out fall of this year. So I don't know if you're a Power Wash Simulator fan, but it's oddly like meditative. And when you allow yourself to get into that, because I got into it and I was like, all right, I want to play this. And I liked the tutorial where just like cleaning the Power Wash van. And then like, it's like, okay, now here's a level that's way too much work for you to complete in a reasonable amount of time. And I was just like, I don't want to play this for like 2 hours on the first level, the first real level.
That's kind of where I got stuck up to. I think it was when you get to the first big house and it's like a pool and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is a lot really fast. Like, it's cool. And I would like to go back to it at some points. If nothing else, to play the weird like DLCs they've added to it. But yeah, maybe that escalation was a little too like steep up front of like, oh, okay, I'm holding down this button for a long time.
Yeah. I was just like, man, I'm having a good time, but at the same time, like this is a lot to like throw you. They literally threw you into the deep end because there's a pool. Get it? But yeah, they really made it so that the escalation was way too much in that first level. I don't know if they've massaged that at all, but I like Power Wash Simulator. I just wish that like it was a more bite-sized level that they gave you after the van.
Yeah, or at least give me, and maybe this is in there, give me the option like, can I just play this without holding down the button? Because it's like, that's really the pain. It's like, I'm getting tired of holding. Like, if you can just spray automatically and I just aim, then I'll do this, you know?
Did you ever play Coffee Talk, Marcus?
Yeah, I really like the first Coffee Talk. I have not gotten around to the sequel. I have it, but I just haven't. It's funny, I was listening to Haling McLean over at MinMax talk about how she played the second game, and I think the first game too, through like actual visits to coffee shops. And that has inspired me to be like, maybe that's how I'll play Coffee Shop too. That seems like a real cozy, fun thing. We're like, oh yeah, I go to a coffee shop for like an hour, play Coffee Talk, and then drink a coffee and have a nice Patreon and just chill out. It's like, I might have to do that just to give me an excuse to get to the sequel.
That sounds very pleasant. And now this makes me want to go and play Coffee Talk Tokyo. which
Yeah.
was announced during this. I mean, I think it was announced, right? It wasn't
Yeah,
previously revealed.
first I've heard of it, yeah.
And this makes me want to go to Tokyo and play this. But yeah, it's late night coffee shops.
You
in
only play
Tokyo.
this game when you're in Tokyo. You just take a trip to Tokyo every week.
So yeah, it's just like talking to customers, serving them drinks, making coffees for them, and then it has a lo-fi soundtrack by the series composer Andrew Jeremy. So coming to Switch, and I'm assuming other platforms in 2025.
Yeah.
Looks very pleasant. Looks like I've not played any of the Coffee Talk games, but it does seem like it's up my alley.
The first one I like quite a bit. There's some fun and some good stories in that. Yeah.
Pachinko inspired RPG called Peglin was on the stream as well, and so you're aiming your orbs and hitting pegs to deal damage in turn-based battles, and you collect these different orbs, and I don't know what to think of this game because it looks kind of very different from anything I've experienced. Like it's like almost like Peggle meets an RPG.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I was like, I don't know what kind of puzzle this is. Like, it looks satisfying just seeing like just the clearing of balls. Like, okay, this seems like this could be fun. Also, I just had every time I saw the protagonist, I was like, this is not Baby Yoda from Mandalorian. This is not Grogu. Okay, it's just but yeah, I'm kind of in a similar spot of like, I think I'll play this. I don't think it has a demo. I wish it did, just so I can wrap my mind around the concept. Yeah,
and it's out now exclusively on Switch for now. It'll be coming to other consoles later. I think it might be on PC as well, but a timed console exclusive available now on Switch. Morsels was the next one. Did you see this one?
Yeah. Oh, this is one of my standouts.
Go for it. Take it away, Marcus. What is this game?
Oh God. See, I have to read the description. I like watching. I'm like, what is happening? I know you play as a mouse in a weird little animal world, but apparently you fight evil forces of like evil cats, and it's like a top-down action roguelike that kind of has like, or maybe it was just in those segments like a little bit of bullet hell qualities or twin stick shooter qualities. Like you're like firing these bullets or whatever there are, and you're just exploring this very bizarre, but like very like it, like the art direction looks really nice. It kind of reminds me of a mix of Animal Well and Nidhogg 2 a bit.
Okay.
And it's got kind of like a scan line, sort of like shaded, it's got kind of like a CRT kind of filter over it that I think looks nice, but like the animations for like all the weird creatures and just how like bizarre everything, like there's like the weird like bug-eyed looking cat that you see early on and stuff, but it was like showing off some just like other like potentially like maybe one-off segments of just like different gameplay styles every now and then in that trailer. And it was one of those ones where you kind of like lean forward a bit as you're watching, like, okay, what am I looking at here? This oh, you've got me here with this one. So yeah, I'm very interested in this one. This looks right up my alley.
Yeah, I mean, that one's coming out February 2025. Then we got Wobbly Life, which is an open world physics sandbox, which I'm reading the description here. It says, Grandma has kicked you out of your home and demanding you get a job. Choose from over 50 unique missions and jobs to tackle on your own, or make your simulated life easier by teaming up with another player online or via local co-op. And then there's different clothing items and mini games and all kinds of stuff. It just seems like one of those like wackier titles. And that is coming to Switch in December. There is Date Everything. There's an exclamation point at the end. It is a sandbox dating simulator where you can date everything. There's 100 characters ranging from household objects and appliances to even concepts. Very funny that we had this get announced and releasing right around the election, given the joke that is going around right now.
So it's this game might well be the last news story I wrote for Game Informer. And it was funny because I wrote it, pretty much explaining everything you did. And then all the comments I saw were in reference to the thing that you just referenced. And I had not heard of it at that point. So it's like, what are people talking about? And then Kyle had to smarten me up on Slack. I was like, oh, huh.
I think he even said, like, good job staying away from the obvious joke, Marcus. And you're like, what obvious joke? And then he had to tell you.
Like, I was so confused. And then I was like, oh, I missed the person I was before I learned about this.
So that game, Date Everything, comes out October 24th. This is one that I was really excited for to see. Neva.
Yes, I've been excited
Neva?
for this one.
Neva?
I think it's Neva.
And this is from the team that did Grease, the beautiful 2D kind of platformer that came out several years ago.
Do we pronounce it Grease? I've always
Yeah, because it is it's the Spanish pronunciation because the studio is based in Barcelona.
That makes more sense. I just it just sounds weird to call it Grease or something.
If it was French, it would be Gris.
So I've always said Gris, and I think I just wanted to avoid saying Grease, but that makes more sense. Yeah.
So this looks absolutely beautiful, and that comes out October 15th. It just looks like it's going to have some of the most beautiful art you will see in video games this year.
Yeah. Also, much more of an action game.
Oh, yeah.
You might think. So Gris was very much more of a platformer, and that was about it. But yeah, this was like, oh no, this is combat. Okay.
Yeah, it has lots of action, lots more action than Grease/Gris/Gris had. And yeah, that's going to be one that I'm absolutely going to check out when it comes out October 15th. Sea of Stars, Throes of the Watchmaker DLC. Marcus, you were a big proponent of Sea of Stars. What are you excited about in this DLC?
I'm excited that it's just more Sea of Stars. I love Sea of Stars. It's one of my favorite RPGs in a while, especially kind of in that kind of like old school vein. It's cool. We knew they were making DLC. We just wasn't sure when it was happening. So getting a first glimpse of it seems cool. There's a new character. I think his name Artie is like a robot, almost maybe like a robo type character in this game. I wasn't clear in the trailer, and I'm only now looking at it on the press release. Like, I assume this happens after the game, like after the events of the game. So I'm curious about that, because that game's story gets pretty wild after a certain point. But yeah, man, like Sea of Stars is such a great game. I'm excited to see what new little mechanics they throw in there, especially like puzzle solving and stuff. I thought the puzzle solving in that game was very strong.
And you have new classes. You have Zale, who can do juggler, and Valir, who can be an acrobat. And there's a new playable character named Artie. You can explore new areas, go to new dungeons, new enemies, new bosses, new puzzles. So it's looking like it's a pretty substantial expansion. That's coming out spring of next year. Have anything to say about Moth Kubit? It is a RPG where you are an insect climbing the ladder of the insect mega corporation.
I like the name and the concept, and also it heavily reminds me of Undertale a lot.
Okay,
which is good.
Yeah, I mean that's not a bad thing to be compared against when one of the most beloved games of the last decade.
Yeah, I don't have like a ton to say other than it's one of those where like I'll keep my eye on that one. That looks interesting.
That's coming out in the spring. Pico Park 2. It is an action puzzle platformer. 2 to 8 players can play locally or online, more than 60 new levels. And then no matter how many players you're playing, you can complete the levels and you can reach the exit. But yeah, there's all kinds of new features that they're adding. It's going to be a timed Switch exclusive, but it's available now if you want to check that out. We also got a montage covering several games. So the Plucky Squire, we already knew that was coming out September 17th. Extremely excited for that one.
Psyched for that one.
Yeah, what are you so excited about with that one?
It's just the idea, like just the 2D to 3D world thing. Like it looks gorgeous, just like art direction wise. The pedigree seems pretty strong. I noticed the Swords of Ditto team, which I thought was a pretty solid game.
Very good game.
But it's one of the I like hearing just how many like one-off little sequences it has, and like I want to see just the like what they have designed to take advantage of that, like hopping between the 2D and 3D worlds. Like we've always seen like flashes of stuff in those trailers, but I want to get in there and just like mess around and see like how deep that rabbit hole goes.
I feel like there is a lot that they could explore. I mean, think of how far they went with like A Link Between Worlds and how like jumping between like the 2D and 3D elements of that. Like there was some cool stuff that Nintendo did. And then, here we are 10 years later or more than 10 years later, because Link Between Worlds was 2013. And, being able to kind of continue on with that kind of similar but different gameplay style I think that there's a lot of cool stuff they could explore there. So that's coming out September 17th, as we discussed last week on All Things Nintendo. Shovel Knight Shovel of Hope DX. I'm excited for this one. It is an enhanced edition of Shovel Knight. 20 playable characters. How did we get to this point? Online multiplayer and other new features. That's coming out next year. On Your Tail is coming out in November 21st. That is a story-driven life sim where you take control of a young detective named Diana, who is trying to find a thief who is menacing a charming seaside town. There's Cuisinier, a roguelite game combining a delectable dungeon crawling and fast-paced restaurant management elements. That is coming in January 28th. I know we're excited for this one. Still no release date, but Metal Slug Tactics showed up. I love the Metal Slug series, so it's cool to see it branching out to other genres. I enjoyed the 2D tactics of Metal Slug Attack Reloaded, I think was the one that came out to Switch earlier this year. Yeah. That's fun. But Metal Slug Tactics looks like totally my jam.
Did you ever play the demo that they had on Steam Next Fest?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Did
I don't
you?
know if it's still available. Well, I played it for GI preview. Like, they sent me a build of it. So I played pretty much the first world. But I liked what I played of it. It's hard.
Metal Slug tends to be.
And it's actually, it's more of a roguelike than I think anyone thought it would be. So that threw me for a loop. But I had fun with it.
Yeah, it says it's a dynamic tactical RPG combining classic arcade action and roguelite tactical thrills. So that's coming this fall. Still no release date there, which is wild. Yeah. Europa is a 3D action platformer. You can glide, fly, boost, breathtaking landscapes.
It's got like a Ghibli-esque kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
That was supposed to come out earlier this summer, and it got pushed. Because I played the demo for it like months ago, and I was like, oh, this seems all right. This seems cool. There's something here.
That's coming out October 11th. There is a free demo available now. And they closed with one of the games I have wanted to come to Switch for so long. Pizza Tower.
Yeah.
Did you ever check this out on Steam?
No, it's been on my wish list, but I've seen people play it, and I was like, oh, that looks cool and like right up my alley, but I just never got around to it. So I'm debating whether do I want to play it on Switch or do I want to play it on Steam now?
Yeah, it's kind of like an arcade style, like super fast paced platformer, and you're running through the tower trying to save his restaurant, and it looks like the best kind of chaos, and it rave reviews on Steam. I actually bought it on Steam because it was on sale not too long ago, and I never fired it up, and now that it's on Switch, I'm like, I want to play it there, so I'm probably going to end up buying it again.
But you have a Steam Deck, so you can...
I do, but I want to play it on my TV. I don't want to play it on my PC.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But it's available on Switch now. It was one of those shadow drops. Yeah. So it's $20 if you want to check that out. Highly stylized 2D pixel art. It's meant to look like 90s cartoons. So very excited to finally dive into that, even though I could just fire it up on my Steam and not pay any more money. But, unemployed people, so much money to throw around. So
that's what we're known for.
Yes.
That's why we're unemployed. We don't need to work because we have so much money.
Yeah. Nobody wants to work.
It's retirement.
So that was the end of the Indie World Showcase. And directly after that led immediately into a Nintendo Direct partner showcase. Let's just run down these announcements. We don't have to dwell too much on these. There's the My Sims Cozy Bundle, which are two My Sims games bundled together. That is coming out on November 19th. Pre-orders are available now on the eShop. We got a new look at Civilization 7. We think we got the release date last week. Yeah. So
first look at the Switch version.
Yeah, exactly. So that's valuable, but not a whole lot to dissect. It looks good. It looks like it runs well, and I mean, who knows if we're really seeing the true performance, because they're not going to show.
That's going to be the biggest question with that game.
Yeah. That's coming February 11th. Very excited for that. Fitness Boxing 3, Your Personal Trainer. I've always wanted to check out these fitness boxing games. I have one of them on my Switch, and I'm always so curious about these like fitness-based games, like Ring Fit Adventure and like how Dance Dance Revolution was and everything,
right?
Where it's like you would just like work up a sweat playing these games. And Fitness Boxing 3 looks like it's really neat. Like you have the Joy-Cons in your hands. They're your kind of boxing gloves, and you're throwing punches that they're telling you to. There's different like mini games you can play. There's mitt drills. There's just like shadow boxing. I think it looks pretty cool. I don't know like how many people listening to this podcast are going to be how excited they'll be about this, but I don't know. Coming December 5th, if that sounds up your alley. Goat Simulator 3, which I'm just now figuring out is not about Michael Jordan's career. Just kidding. I know what Goat Simulator is. It's that physics-based game where you take control of a goat.
Yes, exactly. That one.
A real goat, not the goat. But yeah, it is available on Nintendo eShop today. Physical version coming in November. It looks as, chaotic and unhinged as all the other Goat Simulator games. Online co-op, local split screen co-op, complete quests, challenges, or just cause mayhem. Speaking of games along that line, like SpongeBob SquarePants, the Patrick Star game.
Yeah, this was a surprise, I guess, and
extremely unexpected. So yeah. Patrick Star is the I was going to say the star. He's the protagonist of this game. And yeah, you're just a physics simulator where you're going around as Patrick Star and causing havoc around Bikini Bottom. I noticed this was by Outright Games, which is the studio that's making the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game that is based on Mutant Mayhem, Mutants Unleashed, Mutant.
Oh, the movie, the most. Yeah. I know the game and I've gotten the game and the movie mixed up. I think it's Mutant Mayhem is the movie, right?
Mutant Mayhem is the movie. Mutants Unleashed, which takes place after the events of the first movie. It's the same studio doing that, Outright Games, or the publisher, I guess. It's the same publisher. I'm sorry. The developer of that game is A Heart Full of Games.
Okay.
So it is a different developer, it appears. But yeah, so that is coming out October 4th. Let's get into the Brian segment here, which I literally raised my arms in triumph when I saw this announcement.
Is this like a woo or like a roller coaster wave? Like what is the kind of?
I would say that I slowly raised my hands like this and just watched the trailer with my arms raised, and
gotcha.
I laughed when one of these games popped on the screen. So it's the Capcom Fighting Collection 2. And it is 8 classic fighting games, and I have the list up here on my second screen. Capcom vs. SNK Millennium Fight 2000 Pro, Capcom vs. SNK 2 Mark of the Millennium 2001, Capcom Fighting Evolution, Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper, which from what I understand is the best arcade version of that game, which I think Street Fighter Alpha 3 is one of the best Street Fighter games ever released. Power Stone, which I was like, yes.
At that point, it's like that. This to me, this is the Power Stone collection featuring everything else.
Yes, and then Power Stone 2. When Power Stone was announced, that was when I raised my arms up, and then when Power Stone 2 came out, I was like, oh my god!
You stretched them. You just became Mr. Fantastic, and your arms went through the ceiling.
Project Justice, which is weird that they wouldn't have Rival Schools in here if they have Project Justice. That's a sequel.
You can't. I mean. We're getting a lot already.
I know, but
I see what you're saying, but
it just seems strange. And Plasma Sword, Nightmare of Bilstein.
Yeah, that I never heard of. At least I don't think I've ever played it. Yeah, but yeah, like I said, like to me, it was like Power Stone and Power Stone 2. Like hearing that name uttered in the year of our Lord 2024 was not something I had in my bingo card, and to finally have modern ports of those games. I cannot tell you the last time I played Power Stone because of how inaccessible those games are.
The last time they were released was on the PSP through Power Stone Collection.
That's right. And I never had that version. So I think the last time I could remember was playing it like in high school with a friend that still held on to his Dreamcast, and we played like Power Stone 2.
I played it almost exactly a month ago today. I played it at Dan Reichert's house. He had his Dreamcast hooked up, and we played Toy Commander, and we're like, this has not aged well. So we turned on Power Stone 2, and
still holds up.
That game has not aged particularly well either, but I still had a fun time with it. And I would like
that is my biggest question because it has been so long. It's like, I wonder how Power Stone does hold up today.
Yeah. So that was the first part of this extremely exciting turn of events. We then got Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics, a release date. We finally got a release date. Thank God. Because we've been waiting and waiting and waiting. And not only that, but the release date is like right around the corner. So 7 games are in this collection: X-Men Children of the Atom, Marvel Superheroes, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom Clash of Superheroes, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes, and then we got the side-scrolling beat-em-up game, The Punisher. So that is coming September 12th, and there is also a physical release coming November 22nd. Which of those games are you most excited for?
Oh, MVC2. Like,
okay.
Like I do like those other games and I grew up playing them, but like MVC2 to me is like the peak of the, like, all those games built up to MVC2. Like that is the best or the strongest game in that collection, not counting Punisher because that's its own thing. But like that's another game that has gone long stretches of not being readily available to play. Like I think the last time was when it was on PSN for like PS3. Because I had that version, and I still have my physical like PS2 copy of MVC2 that at one time was worth a good chunk of change. But I have such a soft spot for Marvel vs. Capcom, and especially the second one. Like I have so many fond memories of just playing that nonstop with friends, and like I just, again, it's same with Power Stone. Like it's so nice to have modern versions now for like hangouts and parties. Like, hey, like let's get the band back together. Let's throw down in some Marvel vs. Capcom 2 rounds. And then also having those other games just there is like, to me, that's just like bonus. Like I would have been happy just with MVC2. So. Yeah,
I'm so excited for this, and it's only a couple weeks away. So I'm like frothing at the mouth to get my hands on this. I love so many of those games. I've never played the Punisher arcade game. So
me neither.
I hear it's oddly violent, like not like oddly violent because it's the Punisher, because obviously that makes sense, but like there are like execution style defeats that you can do where it's like you literally like you're interrogating a guy and he gives you what you want and he still blows his head off. It's just like, geez,
classic Punisher.
It is classic Punisher, but it's like you don't expect that in a Capcom Marvel game, because usually I think they have to be a little bit careful with these licenses, but it seems like they actually went hard with this one.
Yeah.
We got Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake. We knew this was coming. I've gone hands-on with it back at Summer Game Fest. They showed off new features like customizable character appearance, exclusive content not seen in the original game, and a brand new Monster Wrangler vocation that you can take on. So we already knew this, but it's coming out November 14th, and there is pre-orders available now. And then Castlevania Dominus Collection. We did not know this was coming.
Brian, this was my arms raising and praising the sun moment.
So this is 3 Castlevania games originally released on the Nintendo DS. So we have Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow, Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, and Castlevania Order of Ecclesia, plus 2 versions of Haunted Castle, the arcade game that was the original and a reimagined version of that original Castlevania game in arcade.
Right. Yeah, I don't know much about how big of a Castlevania fan you are, but I've always argued those DS games were among the best of the series like that. Like as cool as the GBA collection was, because those games are also quite good. I've also like the DS trilogy, I think, is superior to all 3 of those. But I always doubted if we would ever get them, just because of like, how do you adapt the sort of like dual screen design of those 3 games? And it seems like they've cracked the code, baby.
I hope that means we'll have as well, because we need more of those DS games on modern consoles.
Yeah, Nintendo Link Between Worlds, please. But yeah, I still have my physical copies of at least 2 of these. I know I have Dawn and I think Ecclesia. I don't think I ever got Portrait or held on.
Which one would you recommend is the best one out of that bunch?
I would say Dawn.
Okay, Dawn of Sorrow.
Yeah, they're all great, but I say if you want to, like, if you get this collection, you're wondering where to start. I mean, Dawn, if you're going chronologically, is first anyway, but I'd say it's the strongest of the 3. But they're all worth playing, absolutely.
That is available now. And have you picked this up yet?
No, I was looking at it today, and I was like, I think I'm gonna spring on this. So it's like I think I might jump back into this.
Yeah, that might be one for me as well. Which classic Castlevania game is it most like? Is it more like the originals, or is it more like kind of like Symphony of the Night?
More Symphony, especially like Dawn and Portrait. Order of Ecclesia is interesting because it's technically Symphony style, but it's not one giant castle. It's like more hubs of like smaller labyrinths that you're going to different areas. But Dawn especially is just like, do you want a new Symphony-esque game? Here you go, with some cool like almost Okami style like rune drawings. On the DS, you use the stylus to draw symbols to activate the character's like special spells, and those were like your finishing moves for boss fights. So I'm curious how they adapted that, because I think you can use the touchscreen in this version. And I think you could use the controller too, which would be interesting. But yeah, that was like, again, seeing how they move the like touchscreen or stylus specific mechanics will be interesting. But
awesome. Well, you may have talked me into getting this collection. I might have to add that to my wish list after this episode. So that's available. The Castlevania Dominus collection is available on eShop now. So very exciting. Here's one that they led off with, and I am extremely in on this. I always sing the praises of Digital Eclipse. I think they're one of the best studios working now. And they announced their next game, their next Gold Master collection. Is that what it's called?
Gold Master Series.
Gold Master Series. Tetris Forever. Was it you who wrote the feature on the Gold Master Series?
It was. I was. Yeah.
Did they hint at this at all when you were talking to them? Like they had something cool in the works?
No, not specifically. Like they just said they had several of these Gold Master Series like in the oven, but that was about as far as it got. So when I saw this, I was like, "You dirty dogs!"
Oh my gosh, what better to do it on than like one of the most beloved and celebrated games of all time? It's weird to call Tetris a series, but it absolutely is a series. But it's like just weird that like everybody just talks about Tetris. Nobody talks about Tetris 2 plus Bombliss or Tetris Battle Gaiden or anything like that. It's always just like, yeah, Tetris. Let's just play Tetris.
It's like Band-Aid. It's just just a blanket term for.
You're right. Nobody ever talks about Band-Aid 2 plus Bombliss, which is a tongue twister.
And no one ever says Tetranomos either. But yeah, this was I'm with you on this. Like I've enjoyed the Go Master series. Like I wrapped up the Jeff Mentor one earlier this year, which is also wild that this is also coming out this year. This is the first time they've ever done 2 in 1 year. Because it's been sort of like unintentionally they've been on a yearly cadence with those games. But yeah, I like how many other video games and like video game stories are like a better fit for like this kind of deep dive than the history of Tetris? If you've ever read anything about just like the making of Tetris and especially like the legal battle around it, especially when it came to like the console ports and of course the Nintendo version, there's so much that you can dive into there. So I'm excited to see like who they got to talk to and how much went into sort of like telling those stories, on top of getting to play so many like long lost versions of Tetris, including the original NES version, which I think is the first time that's been playable since like ever. Right? Has that ever been ported?
I can't remember it ever being ported, which is, kind of wild that it hasn't been brought forward in any of these virtual consoles or anything.
Yeah, was that like a legal thing? Because again, there was so much like ballyhoo around that game. Like I was assuming like there must be some vague rights things that it's maybe tied up in, but yeah, I mean I love Tetris. To me, Tetris is maybe the closest as it gets to a perfect video game.
Yeah, I mean I was extremely fortunate that right before Summer Game Fest this year, I was invited to a very small gathering of folks at a spot off in LA, and it was the Tetris 40th anniversary party, and they had Hank Rogers and Alexei Pajnatov there. The Alexei being the creator of Tetris, and Hank being the guy who went over to the Soviet Union and basically tried to secure the rights not only from Alexei but also from the government of the Soviet Union. And like basically risked his life to do it. But there's they're the ones that are heavily involved. What is the name of the woman who is in charge? She's the head of the Tetris company now. Her name is, why is that not on? Let's see, CEO Tetris. I met her as well. Maya Rogers. She's the CEO of the Tetris. She was also
no
at
relation
that party.
to.
That's a good question. I didn't even put that together.
So it's like, is there a through line there?
Oh, it's her daughter. It's Hank Rogers' daughter.
Oh, there you go.
She is the president and CEO of the Tetris company. So it showed her being interviewed. It showed Hank Rogers being interviewed. So Alexei obviously being interviewed. They're all still heavily involved with the series, so it makes sense that they would be part of this. And really, it's just like, I can't imagine like a cooler game to make a Gold Master Series game about, right? Like it's the interactive museum. It's going to have all like the documentary elements. You know, you have the people over at Digital Eclipse who have such like a historical look at it. And, you know, they're owned by Atari now. And we saw like the first one that was like, oh my God, this is like a next level type of collection was Atari 50. So it's kind of coming full circle now. But yeah, it's very exciting to have this, and it's coming out some point this year. But there are more than 15 playable classic Tetris games and an all-new Tetris game called Tetris Time Warp. So I'm looking at the Steam page right now just to kind of get. So includes more than an hour of all-new documentary featurettes, including exploring the lifelong friendship and creative partnership between Alexei and Hank. And then the extraordinary but true story about Tetris that you never knew. So Tetris Time Warp is up to 4 players will warp between different eras of Tetris in real time to experience a variety of classic graphic styles and play mechanics. So that's very exciting. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. And this is actually one of the first ones I'm debating getting on Switch, just because it's nice to have a handheld Tetris. So
always
to have a bunch of Tetris games on the handheld would be nice.
Yeah, and then that NES version, literally one of the first video games I ever played in my life. So
really?
I'm like, when they played like the music from it, I was like, I'm so nostalgic right now.
The Game Boy version's included too, right?
I don't know. I don't remember seeing the Game Boy version. You would think it would be, but also Nintendo might have had a little bit of weirdness with that, because they also announced that version is, or no, the NES version is coming to Nintendo Switch Online. And I think the Game Boy version is already on there. Because that was one of the adjacent announcements, was the NES version of Tetris is coming to Switch Online. And then there's a special Tetris 99 Maximus Cup event that's coming later this year. Are you a Five Nights at Freddy's guy?
No. And not even like a derogatory. I've never played them, so I don't even know if I like them or not.
So the previous VR game is coming to Switch, Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2. So that is coming out. When is that coming out? This holiday season. And then Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, which is Security Breach Ruin. It's free DLC coming to Security Breach also this holiday season. Then we got to kind of a portion where I think we can kind of speed run through these. It's not really stuff that I have a whole lot of knowledge on, but I know that there's audience here, so I don't want to not mention them. Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, that is coming out spring 2025. Atelier Yumiya, The Alchemist of Memories and the Envisioned Land. Wow, easy for you to say. It is an alchemy-themed JRPG that is coming out early 2025. Tales of Grace's F Remastered. I know there's a lot of people who are fans of the Tales series.
Yeah, that's one
out.
that I am like at least somewhat interested in. Just it's like, oh, I like Tales games enough.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I've never played one, but I know there's a lot of people who love those games. That's coming out January 17th. Star Overdrive. I don't know a whole lot about this.
This is new, I believe.
This is a brand new game. You're on a hoverboard, basically skateboarding around or hoverboarding around this alien planet, 3D open world, third person action adventure. And you muster the challenge, or muster the creativity to overcome challenges and grow your keytar based powers, is what the description here says.
Because you have like a weird, like keyboard weapon.
Yeah, keytar. Come on.
It's like I guess it is like a guitar and a keyboard. I guess combined.
Hey, keytars are real.
Are they? Are they called keytars?
Have you ever seen Van Halen's Jump?
Oh no, I've never seen the music video actually.
Yeah, look at the music video. You'll see what a keytar looks like in real life.
Oh, I thought they made this up. I thought it was like, oh, it's like a keyblade or something. But I didn't know that. I mean, I've seen people wear the little keyboard things. Is that I didn't know that's what they were actually called.
They are called keytars.
Oh, that's amazing.
Okay. It's not amazing, I'll tell you that much. That is coming to Switch in 2025. That was one where I was like, kind of sat up in my chair a little bit like, oh, what is this? Because it looks kind of like Jet Set Radio meets open world action game.
Yeah, a little bit of Xenoblade, mildly. Yeah.
We have Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster, Gate Rune, and Dunan Unification Wars. Oh man, they've got to figure out better naming conventions for these games. That's coming out March 6th, 2025.
Finally.
Are you being serious? Are you a big Suikoden
fan? No, I'm not even like a huge Suikoden guy, but like this game has been in the ether for some time because it was announced. It got a date, if I remember correctly, then it got delayed, and that delay has been lengthy. So this was the first time they said, okay, we finally figured out when this is coming out. So it was like oh, thank God, this is still happening. God, it's been a long time. So I know a lot of people are probably also raising their arms like this and saying like, finally, okay, we know when this game's coming out.
Sorry, I'm looking up what this game exactly is. Okay, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah, Suikoden. Like,
no. I was talking about the next one.
Oh, okay.
And that is The Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky, the first. And it's just a remake of Legend of Hero Trails in the Sky with the Trails Through Daybreak engine.
So it's the first game, I assume, because this is the first. I don't know the lineage of Trails of the Sky
yes,
or Legend
of Heroes.
It appears to be
that way.
Okay, because like I've always heard they're really good games, and
so
I've had RPG fans like swear up and down like people are missing out on these, and I like RPGs a lot, so it's like if this is a remake of the first game, that makes it more enticing. Like, okay, maybe this is where I get in finally.
Yeah, I mean, because I've heard that like so much of the fun surrounding those games is like going on these journeys with this cast of characters that you grow to love over the course of the series. So
it's like this series and the Yeast series are the two that everyone says like people are sleeping on because they're like secretly really good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't even think it's secret at this point. I think it's just like not mainstream in the US at least.
Sure, yeah.
That's coming in 2025. Worms Armageddon Anniversary Edition. I am very excited about this. I love the Worms series. Did you ever get into them? It seems like it would be up your alley.
I've never played a Worms game.
Oh my God.
I know, right? There's like 19 of them, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of those series that has never crossed paths with me somehow. Like I never knew friends that had them.
I mean, you should play this, especially if you have somebody who you can play locally with. So this is just a remaster of the 1999 classic. It's coming out less than a month from now, September 26th. Stalker Legends of the Zone trilogy. That is a collection of the trilogy of these original Stalker games.
Right.
Coming out in November. It's coming, I think, for the first time it's getting remastered.
I think this is the remaster that came to Xbox earlier this year.
Okay, so maybe it's just the first time it's coming to Switch. Okay. Yeah. Well, that makes sense, because why would they release it 2 times on Switch? Doesn't make sense. Disney Dreamlight Valley is getting some new updates. It's an event that runs from September 4th to September 26th. It is the end of summer event. Star Wars Hunters is getting another update coming September 26th with its new season.
Did you ever play that?
No.
I have it installed. I just have not fired it up because it's free. I should try this.
I watched a video about it, and it did not look like something I would enjoy. But adds a new character called Pillbush, who is an explosive Ewok.
Explosive in what way?
I have no idea.
Like he literally explodes. He has like
I'm assuming he has like a grenade launcher or something.
Farting?
Hopefully not that.
Explosive bowels, or maybe he's just expletives. But it's just like the
Ewoks already look like they smell bad enough. I don't think we need any other type of explosions.
I just liked the words explosive Ewok.
Yeah. Lego Horizon Adventures. We just got another look at that. That's still coming to Switch holiday season, which is still blowing my mind a little bit that we're getting a Horizon game from PlayStation on Switch.
It's so weird.
It very much is. I'm assuming it's probably a similar thing as like the reason that we have the MLB games on Xbox and Switch, where it's like the Lego franchise was like, or the Lego like license was like, hey, you guys can do this, but we'd like it if you could get it on this really family-friendly console as well.
It's also weird their messaging around it, because I feel like every time they've shown a trailer, they reference as like a retelling of Aloy's, first adventure. You Nintendo fans that played Horizon, if this is your only console, you know the story.
But hey, what better way to explore that than through a Lego game, I guess.
Yeah.
This is one I know a lot of people are excited for. It's not really up my alley, but Tales of the Shire, it's called Tales of the Shire, the Lord of the Rings game.
Yeah.
A very bad title in terms of like using a and the.
What if you just called it the Lord of the Rings, I don't know, saga or adventure or something like that?
I just wish they could get rid of that a Lord of the Rings game.
Legally, I think you would be executed if you did that.
Agree, yes. That's coming out holiday 2024. It is a cozy life sim taking place in the Shire, with a bunch of hobbits.
I am curious about this. Like, I feel like I'm very selective with life sim games, so wrapping it around a license that I do have some affinity for. And also to see a Lord of the Rings game that isn't about like fighting orcs, it's like, oh, you're just chilling out. Just chill out with some hobbits, make some like bread and whatever they do.
I know last week's guest and our former Game Informer compatriot, Alex Van Aken, is very excited for Tales of the Shire. Tales from the Shire? Tales of the Shire?
Tales of the Shire.
Tales of the Shire. What?
Yeah, you would think. I think in my brain I kept thinking Tales from the Shire, but I think it is Tales of the Shire. Yeah,
I did not expect that.
This title's all messed up. It's got an A and a the.
Yeah, should be from, but it's of. I'm never gonna get that name right when I say it out loud. EA Sports FC 25. This has been coming to Switch for as long as for years now.
As long as man has existed.
Yes, September 27th. Disney Epic Mickey Rebrushed, which a faithful remake of that original game. That's coming September 24th, and then there's a demo available now in the eShop.
I need to play that. Epic Mickey was one of those games where I like the idea more than the execution, and this game supposedly smooths over those sort of like mechanical rough edges.
I hope so. I heard the camera was like the big
it sucked. It was really rough.
It'd be nice if they could fix that. And also, it's a Switch game instead of a Wii game now, so I'm hoping they added a bunch of technical enhancements as well.
Yeah.
Funko Fusion. This is coming out holiday 2024. Still no date there, but they showed some additional gameplay. How are you feeling about this one?
Wait and see.
Okay, fair enough. Just Dance 2025 coming October 15th. And then the big grand finale.
I'm sorry, Just Dance. Do you think they are hip / like bold enough? Because if you're gonna add one song in here to really get some people talking and maybe get some feet moving, you gotta include like Not Like Us, right?
Oh my god, that would be incredible.
like if they're as hip with the music scene as they claim to be.
There are several things they would have to edit out of that. Not just censoring words, but like censoring entire verses, I feel like.
just long stretches of just like silence or just like
just the beat. I mean, the beat's good enough.
Sound. I don't know. I was just thinking like, man, like what's the biggest story in music that isn't Taylor Swift? It's Drake and Kendrick. Does this feature any of those diss songs in there?
What do you say instead of Certified Lover Boy? Because you can't say what Kendrick actually says in a Just Dance game.
I mean, you could, and then maybe you assume your audience is naive enough to not actually understand what he's referencing.
I don't know if they want to cross that bridge in a Just Dance video game.
I haven't played Just Dance in a long time, so I don't know like how they handle mature songs necessarily. But like maybe you put like a content warning before you pick it, like just so you know this song says some stuff, so we don't have to we don't want to compromise it, but we're also going to put a warning up so you can't get mad at us because we told you that this has some stuff.
Maybe they wait until we get the Kids Bop version of Not Like Us. And they solve the problem for them. And they just put the Kids Bop version in there.
I have never wanted something more than a Kids Bop version of Not Like Us. I
Oh
want the
my
Kids
God.
Bop version of that entire Beef. Like the next Kids Bop album is just every song from the Beef, but Kids Bop style.
So the grand finale, and I think I was expecting a little bit more, but this was also big news. We got Yakuza Kiwami coming to Switch.
Yeah, which not the strongest one more thing, but like cool. I actually, for the first few seconds, I thought it was Yakuza 0, which maybe
Yes.
I think would have been a little bit more exciting. But you know, Kiwami's cool. Is this the first Yakuza game on a Nintendo console?
I think so, which is why I get why it's a big announcement, because it sets the precedent of getting the Yakuza games on there. The same way, like, hey, Persona 3, 4, and 5 are coming to Switch. It's like, yes, I was excited for these games to come to Switch, but also it sets the precedent that maybe future Persona games might be coming to Switch as well, which, you know, Persona 3 Reload did not come to Switch, so I don't know if that really panned out. And Metaphor ReFantazio is not coming to Switch either, but maybe Switch 2 for both of those. Maybe, who knows? But I'm more excited about the precedent this sets, having these games on Switch. Hopefully that means the entire collection will eventually come over. Not that I'm going to rebuy them. Like I rebought all of the Persona games because I wanted portable versions of these. I think I'm satisfied having Yakuza Kiwami and like the entire Yakuza run on my Xbox right now.
Yeah, I could see like these are good games to have portable because they're really long usually.
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely has that appeal. But yeah, I would be surprised if we didn't get the collection just because those are older games. So I don't see why they wouldn't run on Switch because you know they only Kiwami'd the first two games, and then like 3, 4, and 5 are just kind of like HD remasters. Like they didn't put nearly as much work into those. So in theory, it's like, oh, those I don't see why those couldn't be on Switch.
Yeah, and I don't understand why the rest of them aren't. Like, it would have been a bigger splash if they were like, Yakuza 0, Yakuza Kiwami, and Yakuza Kiwami 2 are available now, and then coming in 2025, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Like, that would have been a really big splash.
I wonder, because that's like a more modern game.
It is, but like we have The Witcher 3 and Red Dead Redemption on Switch.
Yeah, I guess
like
so.
I feel like if those giant games can run on there, I mean, I don't know. I've never played Yakuza 6. Song of Hope, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, actually, you might be right, because Kiwami was made with was it made with the 6 engine?
I thought it was with the 0 engine.
Or was it the 0 engine? I think, was it Kiwami 2 that was made with the 6 engine, maybe?
Not sure. I still need to play Kiwami 2. I played 0 and Kiwami, and then I was like, I think I need a break from Yakuza. And then by the time I got around to Kiwami 2, it was like, all right, like a dragon.
But I mean, even then, like, you know, like the Yakuza 0 engine is still a pretty, well, it's a modern engine. That game was like, what, 2017? Like the year the Switch came out, actually?
Yeah, I mean, it was before that, though, in Japan.
Right. So yeah, maybe Yakuza 6 could not catch fire on that system.
Is Yakuza 0 your favorite in the series?
I haven't played nearly all of them. I mean, my favorite in the series from what I play is probably Like a Dragon 7 or Like a Dragon. Yeah, Yakuza 7, like, Ichiban's first game. Let's call it that. The actual official title. Yakuza 7, the first one with Ichiban.
It's the technical term for that game.
That's probably my favorite. But I guess if we're going like the old school, like brawler ones, I do really love 0. I think
Zero I think is my favorite. I mean, I haven't played all of them, but 0 is phenomenal, and it was the one where I was like, okay, I finally see why this series rules.
Yeah.
And I love Majima's portrayal in that game. He's so good. I might want to replay that, but I should play the other ones first. God.
I was like, you have so I'll replay the one and not the like 5 that are new that I could play.
I mostly just like Majima in Yakuza 0, and I know he's never back in that capacity, so it's like, man, I just want to hang out with Majima in Yakuza 0.
Just run a cabaret together.
Yeah, how much fun is that?
That was fun. I did a lot of. I spent so much time in that game running the little host club. I was so invested in that storyline. I was like, we're gonna have the #1 host club, guys. You better buckle up.
So Yakuza Kiwami, though, it's only a remake of the first Yakuza game, is coming to Switch on October 24th. So that wraps up the announcements. How do you grade these presentations? I guess we can grade them individually. So Indie World and then Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase.
I think probably Indie World had more stuff that made me go, "Wow!" Between like the Capcom collection and
Well,
like,
that was the partner showcase.
oh, that was part. Okay, then maybe never mind. Well, let me see. Okay, so I mean, I guess of the two, like when I think of the Indie World showcase, the thing that stood out to me most was Morsels. I was like, oh, I really
Yeah.
want to play that. That looks cool. And then I guess of the partner showcase, then yeah, that Marvel collection is and I guess I mean and the Castlevania one. So I guess maybe I like the other one better because it's got the Castlevania and the Marvel or the Power Stone Capcom collection is what I really mean. Those are huge for me. And MVC2 we knew about, but just, it was cool to get a date for it. But yeah, that the Power Stone and Castlevania were like total like pleasant surprises. And that seems to be a trend with these directs where like the last few have been like, here's something, and, not necessarily that Nintendo is responsible for this, but like we're going to announce a thing that seemed like such a pie in the sky fantasy. And, we're making it happen between like the original announcement of MVC2 and then now this Castlevania and the Power Stone Capcom Collection 2. It's like, oh my God, like, are you guys the home for like, we're going to make your wildest dreams come true now?
I mean, yeah, it's been pretty fantastic. It's been like, as much as people are talking about, like, oh, the Switch is on, like, they're not on the back nine, they're on hole 18's green, right? Like, people are like, we should start, like, boxing up our Switches now because Switch 2 is
people are driving away in their golf carts.
They have had some good directs so far. Like, whether you're talking about the Indie Worlds, the partner showcases, or the one true, like, first-party Nintendo Direct that we've gotten, like, they've been pretty good. I mean, we got a new Zelda game. We got like all kinds of stuff. We got a new Mario and Luigi title. And then the partner showcases have given us some pretty great things as well. Capcom Fighting Collection 2 is one of the more exciting announcements. Tetris Forever is one that I'm stoked for.
I mean, that too, yeah.
I mean, I think that I'm going to give it a solid B for the partner showcase. And I'll do a C+ for the Indie World.
Okay.
But the thing about
what was
Indie
your standout
World,
in Indie World? Did you?
Oh man, Pizza Tower is the one I'm most excited for.
Sure.
Having that on Switch finally. I mean, that's been one I've been waiting for to have.
The Balatro thing.
That was the other one I was going to bring up. Is Balatro? Yeah. It was. I mean, it doesn't. I don't know how much it will impact gameplay, like the different decks that we're getting, but like having Vampire Survivors and The Witcher 3 of all things, like it's weird having like Among Us, Vampire Survivors, and Dave the Diver. I know there's all this debate about is Dave the Diver an indie game, but those are three games that indisputably give indie vibes, whether they're indie or not. I mean, I know Vampire Survivors and Among Us are true indie titles, but Dave the Diver is also indie in like the vibe it gives off. Witcher 3 is very much not that. And it's weird that it's lumped in there, but I'm about it. I'm so about it. And
maybe
I hope
Witcher already has a close association with card games because of Gwent.
That's also true. That's very true. Hopefully that means we'll get Star Wars Outlaws because Sabacc is one of the best parts of that game.
Give us Final Fantasy VII. Put Queen's Blood in Balatro.
Oh my God, yes. Queen's Blood and Gwent.
I mean, those are already the two best card games of the year. It's Balatro and Queen's Blood.
Sabacc is simpler. By the way, if you want to hear the full conversation about Star Wars Outlaws, that was what this week's episode of All Things Gamers was all about, was me and Margaret Andrews talking about our impressions of Star Wars Outlaws. Just another shameless plug right there. But there's a game in there called Sabacc that's an in-universe card game. Not quite as exciting as Balatro or Queen's Blood at Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but it's quite good. I would say it is... It's another very fun card game, and you can like send your little companion Nyx over to like, you can try and cheat a little bit. Like you can send Nyx like under the table to look at what people have on like in their hands. And it's a very different type of card game. And so far I'm dominating the Sabacc circuit, but I'm just about able to go over. I've been putting it off. I've been doing other quests, but like there's like a high rollers table that I've been invited to. So I'm like, is this where it starts getting challenging? Because right now it's like I've just like never lost a hand.
I like the idea that you're cheating your way through these card games.
But there's also like I could see where the bones are there that it could be challenging because there's like a lot of like fun ways you can like screw over your teammates that are legal in the game, or not your teammates, your opponents. So yeah, go check out Sabak if you are interested in those card games. Like I'm sure there's people already posting YouTube videos of that in-universe card game from Star Wars Outlaws. But yeah, I'll say B for the partner showcase and C plus for the indie world. Where are you at with letter grade?
Yeah, I'll give C plus sounds right for indie showcase, and I'll give I'll you know what. Yeah, I'll just take yours. B sounds good. I don't think I could go high. I don't think I could go quite B plus.
Yeah, there's a lot of good announcements there. I would say solid from start to finish. The tough thing about the indie world is like we don't know so much about like a lot of these games that were shown. So it's like, are these going to end up being like, oh, this is one of the greatest indie games of all time, or are these going to be games that are going to come out and have like no fanfare whatsoever? It's hard to predict that. Like if like they revealed like on one of the indie world showcases like Bastion or like Undertale, at first we'd be like, I guess like that's a C plus reveal, and then like they come out and it's like one of the best indie games ever announced or ever released, and you're like, okay, in hindsight that is a much better indie world showcase than what it actually was in the time, because like now we have the benefit of hindsight that like this game that they revealed is one of the greatest indie games of the last several years.
I'm gonna call it now. Morsels going to be a top 10 game next year.
Wow. All right. Well, we will make note of that and maybe revisit it on this very podcast. But Marcus, for now, we are going to take our final break of this episode. And when we return, we will hear all about your trip to Gamescom. We will be right back. We are back for the final time this episode. And Marcus, you just got back from Gamescom, held every year around this time in Cologne, Germany. This was your first time, correct?
Yeah. Always been a sort of on my bucket list of things to do in this industry.
Yeah, I have a few of those still remaining. I've been to Gamescom one time, and it also was under strange circumstances from a Game Informer / GameStop perspective, because while I was there in 2019, almost half the staff was laid off, including one of the guys who was out there with us. And then you were lined up to go on behalf of Game Informer, and then what do you know? Game Informer no longer exists. So you still went out there anyway, and you're like, hey, I'm gonna just go out there and see these games, see what kind of opportunities present themselves. I'm surprised you still went.
I mean, again, going back to it being a bucket list thing, it was like you ever see the Denzel Washington clip where he talks about the Oscars and how he wants to leave? Like, he wasn't going to win. When he realized he wasn't going to win his Oscar, he made it a point to walk out with like a bunch of food and like the goodie bags. And he summed it up as saying, well, I'm leaving here with something. Like, that was very much my attitude of like, I mean, this is already set, and like, I'm not going to let this thing take away the thing that I've been wanting to do for like ever. So I'm leaving with something. I'm getting something out of it. So.
That makes sense. I mean, unfortunately, there were 3 events that I was supposed to go to. All of them actually were very cool events. There was one in particular that's happening in a couple of weeks that I was going to go to that I was extremely bummed to have to cancel. I ended up not going to any of the events. I'm going to something else in a couple of weeks here, so I'll have to pre-record an episode for then. But Marcus, talk to me about your experience.
Yeah, so this is like my first time to Gamescom, my first time in Cologne in Germany proper. I've passed through Frankfurt Airport as like layaways, but that doesn't really count. So to be sort of like boots in the ground in Cologne, beautiful city, and going to this convention, which was the first like event of this size that I've attended since E3 2019, like the last proper E3. Summer Games Fest is like a significantly smaller and more intimate thing, and I don't really count PAXs either because it's just a different sort of vibe. Whereas this was the first time I got to flex that sort of like E3 muscle of like, okay, I am in a giant like multi-halled convention center filled with people, and I have a list of appointments, and I'm going to be running around all over the place trying to hit these appointments. It's been a while since I've had to really do that. So that it, in a way, it was almost like a appropriate swan song as like the last thing that I did. Technically, not really with GI, but like with the GI name because it was on my name tag still, which I did not know it would still be there. I thought they would have changed it by then, so that was like a weird surprise. It was definitely a good icebreaker for people because everyone was. I cannot tell you the number of times I would either run into people that I knew or like that knew of me or at least knew of Game Informer, and they would see my the Game Informer name tag, and they would just go, "Oh man, I'm so sorry." Like it was like having a death in your family that everyone knows about because it was like constant condolences. Like, dude, I am so sorry. You know,
did it ever get to a point, because this is what happened with me, because like I said, like after the first day of the Gamescom 2019 was when we learned about the layoffs,
right?
Back then, and every single appointment started with like a 5 to 10 minute conversation about like, oh, I'm so sorry, and like I appreciated the sentiment so much, but then I remember I got to an appointment and they didn't mention it one time at all, and like it was not like a center of conversation. It was just like, oh, hey, good, you're here to see the game. Great. All right, let's come on in and get started. And it was like, oh my God, thank God they just let me do my job. And like, again, I appreciated the sentiment so much for all the people who did send their condolences. I mean, it was the same way it felt when Game Informer closed down earlier this month. But yeah, in that moment when I was just like at this super busy convention, trying to make all my appointments, trying to get from like one side of a convention center to the other, there was one time where I was just like, okay, good.
Yeah, I get, and it was worse in your case because it had just happened. Like you're still processing it, and you haven't had a chance to go home and like really like figure out what's happening. At least with me, it's been a couple weeks, so it's like it's had a chance to sink in. Like this was the first time I've had to like confront it in person with like people, because you know, like outside of that, it's been talking to people online. But it was the first time, okay, like I'm seeing friends and peers that are like, you know, being sad or being angry at like GameStop and stuff like that, and like ranting about it and whatnot, and as well as like PR people, like plenty of PR people gave me a piece of their mind about what they thought about how all of that went down.
Yeah, I've heard from many PR people as well that are not happy about how it all happened, and you know.
Yeah, so there's a few people I'll probably tell you off air, but again, I never really got tired because I understood. It was just kind of like almost like funny after a while. I was like, I think I know where this is going to go the moment they look at my badge long enough. But other than that, like because of the layoffs, this was a nice sort of I don't know if a chaser is the word I want to use, but sort of it was nice to be around a positive space for games. Mm-hmm. Which is what I always loved about going to conventions. Like they're kind of like a recharge for like your enthusiasm, right? Because you're just surrounded by not only a bunch of games, but like seeing so many people like excited to play stuff. And in this case, like so much of it is the general public. So you're seeing all these cosplayers and just like people's just so jazzed that just like, I will wait in this 8-hour line, like literally an 8-hour line to play Monster Hunter Wilds because I'm so excited. Like I will dedicate what is the equivalent of a work day to play this one game
for like probably 30 minutes.
If even, I don't know how long that demo was, but and yeah, and then, you know, getting to reconnect with friends and meet people for the first time that I'd only interacted with online. Got to hang out with Dan Reichert for real for the first time because we'd always just kind of crossed each other in passing at stuff, but getting to actually have like a real conversation, which, Brian, you might not believe this. We talked about wrestling a lot.
Yeah, I could believe it, actually.
Yeah. So yeah, and getting out with other like CNET and Giant Bomb folks and a few other friends. Sarah Thwaites got to hang out with quite a bit, and her husband Jordan Oleman.
Yeah, I got to hang out with them in Tokyo. They just happened to be in Japan while we were over there for the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth cover story, so we hung out with them a little bit as well. Yeah,
they're great. I brought them some American candies. That was a fun experience for them. And yeah, I got to, of course, play and or watch some cool games on the horizon.
Yeah, so before you joined this call, I was like, what games did you play that we could talk about on a Nintendo-centric podcast? And I mentioned last week about how like almost nothing at Gamescom was like a Switch thing. And it turns out that's also the case, because you told me one game that you played that is coming to Switch, and that is Little Nightmares 3. So I guess give me your brief hands-on impressions with this game.
Yeah, so I'm a Little Nightmares fan. I'm excited for this one. Though this one's interesting because it's not Tarsier Studios making it, who made the first game. They are making a new game called Reanimal that is very much in the same vein, but it's got a different publisher. So they passed the reins to Supermassive Games, who we know best as the makers of Until Dawn and the Dark Pictures anthology, and the casting of Frank Stone coming up.
Final Game Informer cover.
The final Game Informer cover. I ran into those guys too, which was fun while I was there.
Well, at least their cover story got out before the door was shut. I mean, at least people received their stuff. So
they were very grateful. But yeah, that was probably the most interesting conversation, was running into some peeps from there, because I went to go see their new Dark Pictures game. But anyways, yeah. So it's. I played a demo. It's 2 players. You can play co-op. I did not play co-op with anyone, though I've heard some other media peeps that did get to play it 2 players, and the experience seems to be. It seemed they have different reaction to it based on whether you played solo or single player.
Okay.
But despite the change of developer, it is very much a Little Nightmares game, to the point where if you had told me that Tarsier was still making this, I would believe you. It was set in that deserty kind of temple that we've seen in the trailers, with the big baby doll thing that like pursues you, is that segment. It's still a lot of the sort of like environmental puzzle solving of working together with your, at least in this case, Solo, your AI partner, to like either push and pull boxes and find ways to like overcome little obstacles. The 2 characters, Low and Alone, they're called. They each have like one specific ability where I can't remember which one has which, but one of them can fire a bow that you can use to like cut down objects that are kind of suspended by like a rope or something. So like, oh, I need to get this crate, or you can shoot down different targets, or just distant objects. And then the other one has a big wrench that can smash through like weakened walls or like turn cranks. And I played as the one with the bow. And it's like you're working together to get through these obstacles. In terms of like new things, outside of their abilities, there was like a segment where you also get umbrellas. I mean, they're like flowers, but they function like umbrellas, where you can use them to ride wind currents up and down. And then when you jump from like a high place, you can use them to glide to the ground, because if you fall too far in those games, you'll just die. I don't know if that's like exclusive to just that level, or if that's an ability that you retain throughout the entire game or not. But it was something you could just toggle at will in this slice. The chase sequence with the baby was a little cool. It's just I have a thing for creepy dolls. Like, it's like I hate creepy doll stuff. So like for me, it was like maybe more effective than
hate
it
those
might be
creepy
for
dolls.
others. Creepy dolls are scary, man. I don't like creepy baby dolls. But it looks great, just like art direction wise, strong. Those games have always had just a really just captivating art style to them. And yeah, I'm excited. I really love Little Nightmares 2. Like, I like the first game, but I think 2 is a better game, kind of like on the whole. So I'm excited to get my hands on this and see how they iterate on that. But yeah, I had fun with the demo. It was cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think I played a little bit of Little Nightmares 2, and I enjoyed what I played. I just didn't see it through to the end. But yeah, Little Nightmares 3 coming to Switch and every other major platform in 2025. There was one other game that I was hoping you would get your hands on, but it seems like you didn't have the chance to get over there. But I did read a couple of previews. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. So we don't have any hands-on impressions, but I did look at previews on sites like The Gamer and Nintendo Life. And it sounds very much like Shredder's Revenge, but Power Rangers. And this is another Digital Eclipse joint. Like, this is the company that's making Tetris Forever. But it's an all-new title. So basically the premise is Rita Repulsa travels back to 1993 to team up with her old self to defeat the Power Rangers. So plenty of nostalgia to be had.
So which year is she coming from?
Presumably this year.
So has she survived to the 2020s? Like, this whole time she's been hanging out?
She's somewhere? A sorceress, so yeah, I'm sure she has. I don't know.
Okay. I didn't know that was the premise. I was like, oh, that's just fascinating. That like, so Rita Repulsa has just been on an island somewhere this whole time, like not destroyed or in jail or anything. Just biding her time. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really interesting that I think she's a robot now. or something.
Okay.
Okay. Let me look at
this
the
keeps
key
getting
art
better
here.
the more you talk about it.
Let's see what the key art looks like. It's not showing me anything.
So modern day Rita is a robot.
It looks like it. So yeah, it looks like she might be a robot.
I wonder how that happened.
But there's like they didn't get to, the people who were playing it at Gamescom didn't get to play like the Megazord battles. They didn't get to play like the speeder bike sequences. But they said that it plays a lot like Shredder's Revenge, which is all I want from this game. I just want like a Power Rangers, but Shredder's Revenge, plus a lot of like deep cut references that they were saying were present throughout from like the original series.
Yeah, what was the last Power Rangers beat 'em up? Because that was like, there was an era where we got like a decent amount of those, especially back in like Mighty Morphin era. But yeah, there was a fighting game from a few years ago that was like surprisingly good. And then other than that, the last one I remember playing was the Lightspeed Rescue game on PS1.
Oh yeah,
that was a 2-player beat 'em up.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Mega Battle. That's the one that's on Xbox Live.
Oh yeah. I remember that one. I don't know if I ever played that.
What were the reviews for this? Power Rangers Mega Battle. If I could type, it would be great.
Yeah. Oh wait, actually, I think I did play a bit of this. I completely forgot about this.
Not good when I type in Power Rangers Mega Battle Metacritic and the AI thing says Mega Battle is lacking in so many ways. The basic combat system lacks polish and the boss fights look cool but are boring to actually play. That's
I remember
the game that came out a while ago.
The art direction, their heads were like weirdly large. Like they almost had like bobbleheads. Like the Rangers, I mean.
Let's see. That came out in 2017, so...
Okay, I think I did. I definitely didn't finish it, but I think I did try it and maybe was like, yeah, this ain't it.
Oof. Yeah, 49 on PS4 and 46 on Xbox One.
Ew, maybe Rita should go back in time and fix the game.
But yeah, so Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind from Digital Eclipse. That's one that we're very excited for. That's supposed to come out this year, right? Or is it next year?
Was it this year? That was at one opening night live, wasn't it? Didn't it get a new trailer there?
Coming this year, yeah.
Cool. Like a date or just 2024?
2024.
Okay.
So yeah, very much looking forward to that. I think Alex Van Aken is going to PAX this weekend.
He is.
So I'm going to try to see if he is available to come on next week's show and talk about the games he played, because he's also going to try to get hands-on with Zelda Echoes of Wisdom and Super Mario Party Jamboree. So we might have a good show next week as well. But Marcus, as for this show, we are done. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And thank you so much to everyone for listening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, throw All Things Nintendo a 5-star review and hit that subscribe button. If you want to get more All Things Nintendo content, you can join the Patreon paid tiers. If you want to get any questions or comments in, you can get in touch with me at brian@allthingsnintendo.com. Hit me up on social media at Brian P. Shea, or join the community Discord server, which is a perk for joining a paid tier of the Patreon. Also, be sure to find me on YouTube and subscribe to that channel. You can visit me at Brian P. Shea or search for the All Things Nintendo podcast on YouTube. Marcus, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Marcus Stewart 7. You can also find me on Twitch. I've been streaming a lot more at Marcus Streams Games. And you can find me now as a contributor at the Indie Informer. The indie outlet founded by former GI editor Jill Grow. I'm writing over there now for with some other ex-GI staffers. So visit theindieinformer.com.
And yeah, Marcus, you have always been such an incredible person to work with, an incredible writer. You made incredible strides. I know I keep saying incredible, but that's like just the word that keeps coming to mind with our time working together. So I am glad that we're still able to do these podcasts, even though, we can't work together on a day-to-day basis. And, always, if anybody listening to this has any opportunities that Marcus would be a good fit for, cannot recommend him highly enough. So thanks for coming on this episode, Marcus. I'm sure everybody listening will appreciate all your takes on all the games that we talked about today.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man.
And that is our show for this week. Thank you again for listening. Take care. We'll see you next time. Before we wrap up, I just want to give a special shout out to the $10 patrons of the All Things Nintendo podcast: Aaron, Elena, Alex Stadnick, Andy, Ben Richland, Born Orpheus, Brooke Obscura, Chaps My Ass, Colton, Derek, Ian T. Clark, Jacob, Jason, Jawar Hello, Jill Grote, Johnny Five, Jordan Sloat, Joseph, Joseph Jury, Justin, Cody Gibson, Lindsay, Marshall, Megan S., Michael, Toad, Nintendo 101, Pat, Paul at Drunk on Mako, Pratable, Rob, Roger, Russell, Sarah, Scott, Smithy Poo, Tux DC, Wham Bam Sam the Gaming Man, Zach, and Zachary Pliggy. Thanks to you, we're able to keep doing this show and expand on it. So thanks to you and all the $5 patrons that were not named. This show would not be possible without you.